Hey there, Terror Talks fans. Are you looking for some other content to listen to? Well, check out our friends at Tales from the Crypt. Join them on a journey into the unexplained, the unnatural, and the unbelievably scary. Every week, they dig through the creepiest and weirdest listener stories, almost too horrifying to be true. This ghoulishly delightful podcast is narrated by two ghoulish girls. Have a story to tell? Questions? Comments? Contact them at tftcsub@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out and let them know the Terror Talk sent you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Terror Talks. Today, I am joined by a good friend of mine. You heard him on the past two episodes we've had, Mr. Aidan. Say hi, Aidan.
Hey guys, what's going on?
All right, so today we are talking about the big announcement that we had from Halloween Horror Nights the other day was Jack is back. He is one of our major Halloween Horror Night icons, and today's episode is going to be all about the big Horror Night icons of the event. So there are 5 of them. There's a 6th one that is he's interesting to talk about, and he'll be the last one we talk about just because of his nature. And if you're a diehard fan like me, you know exactly what we're talking about. But before we get into all that, we have some news, so we're going to go into our Halloween news segment. So here we go. First up on our Halloween news is the Halloween Kills trailer was announced. Many of you saw Halloween last year. Or no, it wasn't last year. It was back in, 2019,
Yep.
I think?
We took a gap year due to COVID, obviously. Everyone took a gap year.
Yeah, so that was the last time we saw Michael Myers and Laurie Strode on the big silver screen, but they are coming back in Halloween Kills. Aidan, why don't you talk a little bit about it? Tell us about it.
I got the trailer linked to me not too long ago, and I remember when the first new Halloween came out. I remember reading like a couple months after the movie came out, they said the next 2 films are gonna be Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. I already knew it was gonna be just, like a simple 3-movie series kind of from John Carpenter, and we're already seeing the second one, and it is confirmed Halloween Kills as the title. So whoever leaked that information, I guess we are going to get Halloween Ends in probably about 2 years. But Halloween Kills, though, focusing on the current movie that they announced, the only release date I know is October. I don't know an actual day. I only saw October on the trailer. But from the 2 minutes and 20 seconds, it looks like it's going to be very good. And Michael is definitely he's not fucking around in this movie. He really isn't.
Yeah, so I actually just got to watch the trailer a minute ago, and oh my god! I mean, this movie, it's kind of like, if you saw my episode a couple days ago, I did an episode on The Conjuring 3, and when I watched it, I said like that was a different type of Conjuring film. It was different. This is a different type of Halloween movie because it's not your typical like. What's the big gag for Halloween? The man in the white mask stalks the babysitter. It's not that thing again. And even in the 2019 Halloween, it still wasn't quite that cliche, but it kind of held true to it because it still was kind of your typical Halloween. He broke out of the thing and, all hell broke loose. This one, to me, it resonates differently. It definitely looks more intense.
I think what John Carpenter was going for here, because I mean all this whole thing spawned from his original mind, because he wanted to put an end to the Michael Myers fiasco, because everyone kept rebooting it and fucking it up and doing all this other dumb stuff with it. But I think because like we saw like even in the first, how brutal Michael Myers was when killing people. Like he wasn't just going after Laurie Strode. I mean, he was going after everyone that got in his way. Everyone that like slightly inconvenienced him, they were just a stepping stone to him. And even now in the trailer for everyone who watches it or is going to watch it after this, I mean, there's a lot of people dying in the trailer alone, and it feels it feels like the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, but it actually has a storyline that it follows. I mean, yeah, it does have brutal kills, but it's not just like, oh, hey, watch this guy get his head ripped off. By the way, here's his somewhat incoherent Michael Myers subplot, by the way. But yeah, just watch Michael kill all these guys. But John Carpenter has like that blend of like the Rob Zombie gore and all that, and like, you know, brutally killing him, making Michael Myers like a true slasher, kind of like Friday the 13th. But it still has like a nice storyline, and it still sticks to itself from the original movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the little the storyline, and I agree. I think John Carpenter and really a lot of the original people who worked on the original Halloween, they were ready to just kind of put Halloween to bed. Because after the first one, and I could be wrong on this, I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure John Carpenter had no intentions of even making part two. In fact, I want to say he didn't make part two. He only did the first one, and then kind of left two, and therefore everything after that, kind of left it in the hands of whatever director he could find, and kind of said, we did what we wanted to do. You know, we left it open-ended. You know, you guys carry it from here. And unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, it's unfortunate, but it's fortunate at the same time. Because I, for one, love the Halloween movies. They've been my favorite series since I fell in love with horror movies. And I always really actually kind of liked the whole character arc of Laurie being Michael Myers' sister. Like, I enjoyed that just because I felt like it gave him a motive. But, you know, some people say that it's a lot more scary when there is no true motive other than just pure wanting to murder. And I think that's one of those things, like, since they kind of, with this movie, kill the whole he's her sister vibe, it really makes it a little bit scarier now. Because it's just like, okay, so he has no real reason to want to kill her other than he just wants to butcher somebody.
I think also the premise for Michael is that it like you know, he, even after he kills Laurie Strode, if he does, like, let's even say in a hypothetical situation he does kill Laurie Strode, then he's not going to stop there. It's not like his end goal is to kill Laurie. It's just she's the one that got away 40 years ago, and he can't live with himself for letting her fucking slip through his fingers like that. So he's like, he's got to do it. You know, he just got, it's the principle of killing her.
Right. It's definitely going to be an interesting film, I think. I'm very excited. So I actually have some information for you. I looked it up. I kind of did a little bit of digging, and I don't know how true this is. But from what I found online, the release date for this one is going to be Friday, October 15th, 2021.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't know how concrete that is, but I mean, it seems pretty concrete. And actually, assuming that where I got this information from was correct, they have a release date for Halloween Ends already as well. And that is October 22nd, 2022.
Okay.
So it's going to be very interesting to see if they follow suit with this, or if this was just some troll on the internet throwing some information up there. But I think it'll be very neat. One thing, I do want to mention this, because I literally made a note of it when I saw it. I love that I love this, but the fans, I went and read some comments on it. A lot of fans did not like this, but I love this. In the trailer, there's a specific scene that they show where there's these kids on a little
the playground with the masks.
Yep, and I love that little callback to Halloween 3. I thought, thank you, God. Like, John Carpenter's a genius. And what baffles me is a lot of fans were kind of pissed off about that. Like, I read some comments, and a lot of them were like, oh, well, if you're not a diehard of the series, you know, this is stupid kind of thing. And I'm just like, really? I think it's genius.
Just a callback.
Right. So
I don't think we're gonna see Silver Shamrock in the next two movies. I don't think they're driving Michael Myers insane here, telling him to kill everyone.
I mean, wouldn't that be an interesting way to tie everything together, though?
I mean, that'd be a little bit funny, but I think John Carpenter has like a really genius idea of what he's gonna do here, and even though like we'll see Halloween Ends, it might not even be Michael Myers dying. Who the hell knows? I mean,
yeah, it's very true. I mean, even in the original whole series, I mean, Michael Myers never died, and that was the big thing that Sam Loomis, Dr. Loomis, emphasized very heavily in every single movie that we saw him in. God rest his soul, Donald Pleasance, amazing actor. Gone too soon, man. I loved him. Actually, I guess he probably wasn't gone too soon, but I would love him to still be around today.
Yeah, he was pretty up there in age, even in the first Halloween movie.
But still, hands down, one of the best actors. Like, oh my God, nobody can play Loomis like him. Anyways, I digress. Even in the original movies, he said so many times that you can't kill him. Like he made it a point to tell us that there is no way you can kill him. And I'm curious if John Carpenter is going to kind of carry that through here, that same motive. And it's funny because in the trailer, a lot of people said this trailer showed way too much, and to a degree I agree, but at the same time this trailer really got me excited, so I can almost disagree on that. But there's a line in there where even Laurie says you can't kill evil, basically saying you can't kill him. And so I'm like, ooh, okay, so they're kind of, it's Dr. Loomis all over again. So I'm wondering if they're going to play it out like he's supernatural, or if it really is just a human being. Because if you recall, every other Halloween, they have killed him with like a plain method of killing him. That he shot him in the heart 6 times, chopped off his head, blew him up in a mine shaft. There's all these ways that they physically killed him that a human couldn't survive. But with this one, what I find so interesting is at the very beginning of it, like in at least in the trailer, they basically show that he didn't survive by supernatural means at all. He survived because he just simply had not been burnt up in the fire yet, and these firemen came to save him pretty much. So I'm wondering if they're trying to kind of veer away from that supernatural vibe and basically just say he's just a serial killer. And so that'll be interesting to see how they play with that.
Yeah, I think what John Carpenter is gonna do here, because I mean, even though Michael was, he escaped and everything, like in the very very first movie. I mean, even then, I mean, there's still like some divine presence, I guess, that's driving him. But yeah, it's definitely not in the sense of no matter what you do, he's completely impenetrable. He won't stop until he's finished with what he's done. Because I think John Carpenter has realized that even like in H40, like the end goal wasn't Laurie Strode. I mean, yes, he wants to kill her, but like I said before, like he's not going to stop killing once he kills her. He's just going to go back and kill more people. It doesn't matter to him. It's just that she got away. That's all that he cares about, is that she got away.
Right, absolutely.
And like John Carpenter has applied like a very like realistic kind of aspect to the new movies now. Means of escape. It wasn't some big plot hole like, oh, where did he go? How did this happen? Like that should have definitely killed him. And it was just, oh, hey, the firefighters came in, and then he got out that way and killed all the firefighters. I mean, they tried to fight back, but it's hard to fight back against something like I think it's like 6'6" or something like that. He's pretty tall.
Yeah. So that is Halloween Kills, ladies and gentlemen. Those are our initial thoughts on the trailer after watching it. This movie stars Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, Judy Greer as Karen Nelson, who is Laurie's daughter, Andy Matichak, who is Allison Nelson, Laurie's granddaughter, and Will Patton as Deputy Frank Hawkins. So be sure to check it out when it hits theaters. The speculated date right now is Friday, October 15th, 2021. Up next on the news segment, we have some news from one of our favorite haunts that we got to attend this past year, Paranoia Haunted House. They are doing a special event, one night only, on July 10th, called A Midsummer Night's Scream. They're going to open up their haunts for one night. I believe, I'm merely going off of what I saw earlier, it is going to be from like 8 o'clock to 11:30. So you got a very tight window to get in there and check it out. It's going to be $30 admission. I didn't see any other prices, so I didn't see anything about speed passes, VIP, anything like that. It's just this blanket $30. You get in, you check it out. We had the distinct pleasure of checking out their haunts this past year. We did not get to do an episode on it, regrettably. There was just a lot going on at the time when we started things up, and so we didn't get a chance to really record. But this year we do hope to get back up there, and we definitely have an intention on trying to make it up there for this Midsummer Night's Scream event to really kind of give you guys the ins and outs on it, let you know how it was. We loved it when we attended it. Me and my brother got to check it out, and oh my God, it was very nice, very cool. It was very much in line with Netherworld Haunted House, which is another one of those ones we attend yearly. This year we didn't get to do an episode on it, unfortunately, but we will, once again, we will get to do it again this coming year. So be sure to check out Paranoia Haunted House, A Midsummer Night's Scream, July 10th. $30 admission. Bring a friend, bring a group of friends, check them out. You don't want to miss them. They are up in North Georgia. I'm not positive on the location. I'll leave their information in the description here so where you can check it out. Lastly, on our news segment today, we have Mad World Haunted Attractions. We did an episode on them back on episode 2. We did an entire review on their haunted attraction. Go back and listen to it. They are having an open call for actors for their 2021 haunt season. So this basically means that you can apply for the position of being an actor, makeup artist, costuming, parking, and general staff. So will get to apply, go up there for an audition, and get to basically show them your stuff. If you think you're a good actor or a good haunt actor, and this is something you love to do, be sure to go and apply now at madworldattractions.com. We went there last year. We got to attend their haunt, and it was nothing short of insanity, honestly. But I won't say too much about that. All I will say is buckle up should you go out here, because it will be packed. There will be hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of people out there. And actually, it's probably more like thousands upon thousands. Like, this place is packed. 4-hour wait time to get in. I intentionally bought a speed pass to get through, because I said there's no way in hell I'm waiting for that. But definitely, don't take our full review as the word of God on that. If you want to go check it out for yourself, we highly encourage it. I highly encourage you, if you make it out there, buy a speed pass, because that's your best bet on getting in before the night is out. So Mad World Haunted Attractions, they're having open call for actors. Check them out. So that's going to do it for today on our news segment. So now we're going to jump into the main topic of our episode. Recently, Universal Studios announced that Jack the Clown would be returning to Halloween Horror Nights 30. This is going to be their 30th anniversary. You heard me, Aidan, and Daniel on a few episodes ago. We kind of briefly discussed this. We let you know about ticket prices and all that fun stuff. But today we're going to do something a little different. We're actually going to give you the backstories, the history of these guys. We have developed a whole lot of stuff to talk about, what events they were at, what these people can look like, so you can look out for them, their backstory, everything. We have it all right here for you. The reason we're doing this is because not only has Jack the Clown been announced to come back this year for Halloween Horror Nights, there is big rumors, speculation here that all of these icons that we're going to talk about are coming back, and they're going to get their own haunted house that will feature all of them. We are still waiting on a full confirmation from Universal on that, but as soon as we know, you guys will know. But because of that, we just want to give you guys basically a history lesson. Today's history lesson on the Terror Talks about Halloween Horror Nights. So we're just going to dive right in. Aidan, do you have your show notes in front of you?
Yep, I got the history here of the characters and their origins.
All right, well, why don't you start us off with that first little thing about Jack the Clown? Talk to us about that.
Jack the Clown, also known as Jack Schmidt, is a character created by the Universal Studios design team as an icon for Universal Studios Halloween Horror Night. He was introduced as the first original icon, but he's not the first icon in general. As you get the classic monsters, the Crypt Keeper, and Imhotep came before him. But for the event during its 10th year, and it became so popular that he had been used several more times over the years. So I guess he was more created in a minor kind of like just kind of in the back of the mind sort of thing, but people loved him so much that he was brought into the forefront. It's like this is our staple right here of Halloween Horror Nights. He appeared in Orlando, Hollywood, and Singapore, and also making him and the director the only two icons who have appeared in 3 of the 4 Universal Studios parks to feature Halloween Horror Nights events.
Okay, so Jack the Clown. So yeah, he is one of the, like you said, he's the first original icon, and I think that's why they've made such a big deal about him, because he was the first one that they just kind of created out of nowhere. They said, we need something to say, you know, we're Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, so we need something that's going to shout, hey, this is us, not, hey, this is something that's already been created. And, you know, like they said, he's not the first icon of the event, but he is the first original one. You know, in the past we had classic monsters, the Crypt Keeper and Ematep, like you said. And, you know, we may do a episode on them sometime soon, maybe episode 20 or 30. You know, we'll come back and we'll do an episode on the, not necessarily the original icons, but the I guess you call them the IP icons. So the appearance of Jack, I'm going to tell you guys about this. Jack's appearance is a twisted variation on the traditional garish clown getup, most resembling a grotesque white-faced clown. His hair is wild and bright orange red, and his face is smeared with green and white makeup. Evil yellow eyes glare out of dark sockets, and he grins with a green-rimmed mouth of yellowed, protruding teeth under a big red nose. His fingernails are long and dirty, and his polka-dotted costume is stained with blood. Okay, so this is not the type of person I want to run into in a dark alleyway.
It sounds like it's someone you'd hire for a quick little budget in like a Walmart parking lot for a kid's birthday party.
Yeah, covered in blood and stuff. Been drinking.
Yeah, he's the shady clown that, like, when all the other clowns are fully reserved and booked, you know, he's like the last minute kind of guy. He's like, you know what, I need this guy for my birthday party. I have to get him.
Well, I don't think I would hire him just for my enjoyment for like my birthday party, but I would not hire him for a children's birthday party. I don't care what budget I'm on. I don't want to scar the children for life, right? Yeah. So the year that they did Psychotherapy Maximum Madness, they decided to change up his look a little bit. And so that year he came in, he was in a straitjacket with most of his makeup washed off, a beard, and several cuts on his face. So for that year, you kind of got a little bit of a look behind the curtain and really see who he was. Then, the year of Carnival of Carnage, he got a new look, and his signature polka dot costume was replaced with a red leather coat. With his reappearance at Halloween Horror Nights 25, he retains the leather red coat look, but has traded the classic ringmaster coat for something more akin to a sort of straitjacket. He also seems to have aged, gaining a more weathered look, possibly a side effect of his transformation into the Herald of Chaos during Halloween Horror Nights 20 Years of Fear. Be paying attention as we talk through this stuff. You're going to hear us mention, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of let you know now, all of these icons were featured in a special Halloween Horror Nights, which was defined as the 20 Years of Fear. I'm not going to tell you, I mean, unless you're a diehard and you already know, but we're not going to tell you right now what the reasoning for that was. But there was something very, very interesting about that Universal created. So, the personality, Aidan, what is this guy's personality like?
He seems like your typical, you know, high school stage performer. He's a very vain glory hound with a huge ego. He considers himself the star performer, as most, you know, acting people do. And he's quick to throw out a few puns to get as many laughs as he does screams. He loves to be the center of attention and steals the spotlight. It drives him to homicide when he thinks someone is trying to upstage him. So this is more like a guy who's like, you know, his morals are kind of stripped away. But he does show some restraint, apparently, such as during a performance, or at least until he can improvise the death of the upstart into the act later. He does show some admiration for the work of others, however, such as his little brother Eddie, which apparently Eddie is super like fucked up and gory. Apparently, I'll get into that later. But he sent funds to help restart his murder for profit business run and other killers who have a flair for the theatrical. He seems to have no respect for Beetlejuice. our very good comic friend who say his name 3 times, he comes and appears and helps you out to his own degree. And he's been quote as saying, "I wipe my ass with his striped suit." And other such things as his ass is on the other side of the park. So we have a bit of a gang war between Jack the Clown and Beetlejuice here at Universal Studios. But he also has a soft side apparently when it comes to Chance, which is his female counterpart, and she has a personality and appearance that was based around Harley Quinn from the Batman universe.
Okay. So, yeah, so I got to point this out. You gave us that quote that he has said about Beetlejuice. And, a lot of people, they come down to Florida and they want to take the kids to Disney World. And then they want to say, oh, let's go over to Universal Studio. And, Disney World is very much, there's no way they could ever get away with something like this.
Very, very politically correct, on the nose, kind of.
Right, exactly. And so just that line alone, I wipe my ass with his striped suit. That just goes to show you that Halloween Horror Nights is not a kids event. And I have so much respect for Universal for doing something like that, because it really sets them apart from all of these other Halloween entities. We went to Six Flags this past year, and granted, obviously it wasn't full out, but they did the Six Flags Fright Fest, and even them, they're not going to push the envelope that far. They'll go a little bit, but Universal is they're saying, you come here, you are coming to the premier Halloween event in the world, pretty much.
To the credit of the Six Flags cast, though, I mean, yeah, they stay well within their limits. They give a convincing performance and whatnot, and they kind of make it more family oriented. I mean, yeah, there's some scary things that are not really somewhat on the kid friendly side, but even then, I mean, they're not going to swear at you or like put their hands on you or anything like that. But Universal was more like the standard line of what you would see outside of company ran amusement parks, to where it's swear at these people, you kind of want to harass them a little bit, make them actually concerned and worried all the time, and basically give them an authentic scaring experience, not just the visual horror. It's the actual lingering effect of unease.
And I like I said, I have the utmost respect for that. Just because, in a way, Universal's big claim to fame was always ride the movies, right? And with this, I really accredit it almost to one of the haunted houses that I go to regularly, Nightmare Dungeon. One of the big reviews I gave them was when you go into that haunted house, you're starring in your own horror film. And that's what it felt like, because they could grab you, they could do that stuff to you, and they could be a little more brutal to you. And with Universal, in a way, it's the same thing. Obviously, with them, since they're a major corporation, they have to take a little bit more caution with things, but they still have license to basically say, you're going to pay this money to come to our park, and we're going to make it feel like what a real horror film would feel like. And with that, it comes the blood, the guts, the gore, the cussing, one thing I've heard is Universal has had some very sexual kind of things, not like happening, anything like that, but very risque costumes for the women and the men in certain locations of the park during Halloween Horror Nights. And they say right up front, this is not a children's event. Like, if you bring your kids here, you are kind of fucked up. That being said, I'd probably bring my kids, and I'd be like, you're going to be just like your dad. Enjoy the Halloween stuff. It's great. But if you bring your kids to this event, you've got a couple issues in your brain. I mean, that's all I'm saying. But, it's amazing that they can do that with this event and not catch backlash from people. And I think that's very important to them, because there have been some who have said, oh, Halloween Horror Nights is going soft. It's going soft. And little things like that just goes to show you, no, they're not going soft, and they will never go soft. So let's jump into the backstory for Jack the Clown. There are several different backstories that I think they all kind of tie into a different year, either a different year or a different part of his life. So we'll just kind of each little part of it, we'll just kind of take turns doing that. So I'll start us off. So with Jack being the first original icon, he had a very detailed backstory, and his success prompted the creation of more icons for future events. So let's begin here. Clowns are always laughing on the outside. Born in Shady Brook Rest Home and Sanitarium, along with his brother Eddie in the late 1800s, John Jack Schmidt was a carnival performer who loved to entertain children with his practical pranks and pratfalls during his stint with Dr. Oddfellow's Carnival of Thrills. He had escaped a poor and highly abusive family years earlier to run away and join the circus, leaving behind his younger brother Eddie. But underneath the grease paint and clown nose, he was a twisted murderer. He was wanted for the abduction and disappearance of several small children throughout the southern United States. Police officials and the FBI soon caught on that the missing children followed a pattern that led them closer and closer to the traveling freak show. On Halloween of 1920, the police were closing in on the clown killer. Fearing capture, Jack revealed his sinister secret to Dr. Oddfellow in the hopes of possible concealment. The doctor, himself wanted by the police for the accidental death of several patrons in a freak circus accident years earlier under a different name, was not sympathetic to Jack's cause. He quickly admonished him for potentially bringing the police down upon the entire band of miscreants. He asked Jack to show him what he had done with the bodies of the children. Jack revealed the bodies of 13 children hidden in the confines of 3 small trunks that were kept in his traveling coach. Fearing the worst, Dr. Oddfellow had Jack murdered and his body hidden within the traveling carnival's House of Horrors as an exhibit, along with the bodies of the children. Years later, the carnival was sold by Dr. Oddfellow, and the various dark rides and exhibits were split and sent to various owners around the states, including the House of Horrors and its grisly secret. Somewhere along the way, Adaru chose him as one of his heralds. Now we'll get to what Adaru is a little bit later. Aidan, why don't you take over here?
All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and jump back to your side a little bit here. How about there was the body in the horror house. There was a story that I heard of about an outlaw who was killed, and like he had his body like stuffed and embalmed and all that by a mortician. And apparently his body was never actually put to rest, and he was passed around a couple times to use like in like haunted houses and like on display for like movies and whatnot. And no one actually realized it was a dead body until like 1970 something. It was pretty crazy. Yeah, you have to look that up.
So I wonder if Universal kind of took took a little bit of inspiration from that with this.
More than likely, because that's a pretty bizarre story that no one actually discovered it was a real person. Like he was just lost to the sands of time, and then they're like, oh hey, this body comes apart not like a fake body. This is blood. Oh, person. But all right, so we're gonna go ahead and jump into Not Afraid of the Dark. Now, 60 years later, in the fall of 1980, a television crew from the BBC was documenting the great dark rides of America. And they journeyed throughout the eastern seaboard looking for forgotten carnival rides and attractions, and stumbled upon the House of Horrors as it sat abandoned in a Louisiana junkyard. That's the perfect place to find a good haunted house, is in Louisiana. Right. Now, the crew asked permission to film the interior and pried open the doors to the forgotten relic to step inside. The smell of decay was overpowering as the bright camera light illuminated the darkened corridors. Moving past the faded walls and hanging fabric, the smell began to increase. The cameraman retched as he panned his camera towards a series of trunks. Behind the trunks was a large wooden box stenciled like a children's toy. One filled each side of the box, as in J-A-C-K. So it's just a Jack-in-the-Box. It's a real-life Jack-in-the-Box we got here, fellas. And the cameraman steadied his camera as the host of the show investigated the box. This is starting to sound like a creep show a little bit with the He found a large crank on the side. Oh, yep, here we go. Real life Jack in the Box. It started to move with some resistance, but after a few twists, it freely moved in a clockwise rotation. They should have seen this coming. A clanky musical melody played out as the host turned it. Suddenly, however, the music stopped and wouldn't start again until he continued to rotate it. Yep. The camera light suddenly died, of course, and the crank rotated a few spins on its own. Nice. Cherry on top right there. The top of the box flew open and a form sprung out. Affixed to a giant spring was the decomposing body of Jack Schmidt. After a thorough police investigation, the bodies of the 13 children as well as the body of Jack were shipped to the local Louisiana coroner's office for further examination. Around midnight on Halloween, the van carrying the body and box of Jack disappeared in Louisiana swamp. This is starting to sound like a sort of a Halloween film. In a freak accident later that week, the bodies of the BBC cameraman and host were found as the victims of a grisly and unsolved murder. Throughout the following years, urban legend retells of the tale started, with a corresponding story about the decomposing body of Jack killing again. The legend states that Jack is searching for Dr. Oddfellow in a thirst for vengeance. You could use a phone book, honestly. It's 1980. You could probably find him by now. But the legend also states that Jack will reward anyone who releases him from his toy tomb by returning the crank with a very special reward. I wonder what that could be. In 2000, Universal Studios bought the old prop from the old House of Horrors, including what was sold in the box that Jack was trapped in for so many years. A Universal employee went to test the legend, and Jack was unleashed on the unsuspecting Halloween Horror Nights guest for the first, but certainly not the last time. Man, they really love opening that box, don't they?
Apparently. So 2000, that was the first year we got to meet Jack the Clown. But it was not the first year that Universal had done Halloween Horror Nights. That was, I want to say that was like their 10th year. No, I guess it couldn't have been their 10th year. But it was around the beginning times of it. So that was the first time we met Jack. So, as you said earlier, you mentioned his brother Eddie. And so we're going to talk about him for ever so briefly because he doesn't quite make an appearance.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, no kidding. So, taking over again. Originally, Fear, we'll talk about him later, chose Jack's brother Eddie, to helm Halloween Horror Nights for the year 2001. But all that changed when the devastation of 9/11 occurred. Having a rare about compassion, Adaru decided that Eddie in that particular year would be too tasteless even for him, given the events that happened elsewhere. So he once again instructed Jack to take over the event yet again. Jack also softened quite much, probably finding the 9/11 attacks to be lacking in humor or merriment, and had the event lighter, right? And had the event lighter than his previous years. So this is very interesting because, obviously when the September 11th attacks happened, it took a big toll on the tourism industry, the world in general. So I can imagine, I've never actually looked into it, but I can imagine that year you probably didn't see a whole lot of horror films coming out. You probably didn't hear a lot of, grisly deaths, and you didn't see a lot of movies, film, shows, anything like that, because that was a time when a lot of people were serious. And I kind of love here that Universal took that extra detail to have some compassion about, what had happened, and said, we can't get too crazy here because of what's happened. We have to be sensitive. And I think that was that shows a lot of class on their part. And so I give a lot of applause to Universal for that. I remember I listened to it somewhere the other day where someone actually talked about this on one of the other podcasts, and they mentioned how 9/11 was supposed to be Eddie's year, and how it all changed. And so I think that's very, very awesome on Universal for doing that.
So I kind of find it a little bit funny though that because of the fact that it was gonna be too gory and whatnot, they didn't want people to get upset and be reminded of the events and whatnot. But I like, just thinking about it now, I kind of find it a little bit funny how they released Jack out of the box and they're like, hey Jack, you see this event happened and we kind of need to tone it down a little bit, and Jack was just completely fine with it. He was like, yeah, sure, don't worry, we got this.
Well, that's the thing about it is Jack by nature, is more of a, like, you know, he's not as gory as Eddie, obviously, but he is kind of like he's a ringmaster basically, and he knows how to draw a crowd, and he knows how to throw some funny. He's not all about just being scary. He has the funnies, as we heard earlier with the whole Beetlejuice comment. You know, they gave him this kind of comedic side, and so that's why it was good to have him, because he's able to kind of play into that. And so that's very good that they, you know, I can imagine they were probably faced with a choice there that year, and because, you know, of the timing of the September 11th attacks. What you have to understand about Universal is they plan Halloween Horror Nights out as early as like March. Like, they're working on this shit all year long. So they had everything in place by this point. Like, they were getting ready to open the gates very shortly on it. And so they were faced with a decision. I mean, you can't cancel it at that point because you've put so much into it. And it's kind of like how with this past year with COVID, you know, when they ultimately decided to cancel the event last year, they did that back in like April because they weren't going to put in, you know, 5-6 months of work and then get it canceled at the last minute. And so with that year, I'm assuming, you know, it was kind of like you have a decision to make. Do you go forth in the format that you have, or do you modify it in some way? And they clearly had a way to modify it that year. So, Aidan, Horror Nights Nightmares.
So fast forwarding to 2004, Universal decided to make a movie featuring all the Halloween Horror Nights icons called Horror Nights Nightmares. I actually never knew that. That'd be interesting for me to check out to educate myself on the Universal horror lore. And however, the set and production started to go awry when the icons, including Jack went loose and started killing all the crew. Okay, so I'm not going to get to see that movie then. Got it. I guess, yeah, I'll go ahead and take the next chapter, and then because the Looney Bin seems a little bit longer. These are two little short points right here. So beyond Maldekin, and in the land of Terra Cruentus, there was a portal that was filled with relics called Maldekin Pass, which would transport guests into the theme park where Jack sprung loose before. And Jack would host a certain chain link maze called the Rat Run, where he would heckle guests as they try to make their way through. Okay, that sounds like a pretty standard carnival attraction, except with the murderous clown heckling you while you're trying to navigate your way through.
I think that's that year, just reading it, that's a very interesting take on how to bring Jack back. Because, I mean, obviously you got to think they got to come up with a new story every time they bring him back. And to basically have it be, oh, you hop in a portal to where he's already been. Like, it's kind of interesting, but kind of lazy too, because it's like, oh, we didn't really have to come up with anything too new, but just new enough to, you know, basically get you to Jack.
Yeah.
All right, so the Looney Bin. The Lord of Darkness resurrected Jack and his icons to take place in the birthday celebration. The now mortal Jack was soon caught by the authorities and committed to the place of his birth, Shady Brook Asylum, an institution that had suffered an inmate escape a few years earlier. Though often isolated in the maximum security ward, Jack's mere presence seemed to have an adverse effect on the unstable population who started emulating the crazed clown, much to the staff's dismay. Eventually, the inmates started a mass riot, gruesomely tortured the hospital staff, and put Jack in charge of the facility. During the chaos, Jack found records that his former boss and murderer, Dr. Oddfellow, was still alive, but presumably now a very old man since he had been on the job since the 1920s and running a small traveling carnival. Okay, so they found a way to continue that story with Dr. Oddfellow. You know, we hadn't heard about him for a little bit, and so they found a way to, you know, kind of bring that back.
Yeah, like I stated earlier, when he came back around in the 1980s after being released, I mean, he could have just, you know, looked up Oddfellow in the phone book and went down and chased him, you know, kind of like the Terminator did in the 1980s. But I guess that just wasn't on his priority list at that time. Poor guy.
Yeah. All he had to do was go down to the Terminator attraction back then and ask him how to do it, and it would have been very easy. All right, so tell us about Jack's long overdue vengeance.
All right, so we're getting to the chapter of vengeance at long last, and it appears that Jack had left Shady Brook traveling to the depravity of Dr. Oddfellow's Dark Carnival and Emporium. So he's basically on a mission now. He knows what he needs to do. He's got it all laid out here. In the dark of night, Jack stalked into the tent and took his long overdue vengeance. When he emerged, he was changed. During incarceration, Jack got a taste of what it was like to run the show, and he desired to be the ringmaster of his own carnival. So this is where he takes on, like, his leader personality. This is where he crafts into it and, becomes the main front force of everything. He dressed himself in the bright red coat and boots of a proper ringmaster. He also adorned himself with a crude top hat and terrible trinkets of his liking. Interesting, probably fingers and ears, if I had to imagine. He completed the transformation with Dr. Oddfellow's prized possession, which is presumably what kept Oddfellow alive and in motion for 80 years, a silver-headed cane of souls. Interesting, so he was feeding off of souls to stay alive. All right. And putting the carnival on hiatus, Jack spent the next few months traveling the world to find the right sideshow acts for his deadly carnival of carnage. Now, I don't know much about Jack's appearance at this time, but I don't think he'd be allowed at airports to fly around the world, if you will. So he definitely had an interesting means of traveling if he actually did go around the world and find people. Now, he gathered a plethora of monsters, mutants, madmen, and maniacs. That's a lot of M's right there. All right. Now, many with egos nearly as large as his own, luring them with promises of fame, fortune, and plenty of fresh victims. Okay, I guess the Universal just doesn't mind that all of its potential guests are victims. And after nearly a year of preparation, Ringmaster Jack opened his Carnival of Carnage in Orlando, Florida.
Well, guess he got his wish.
Yeah, he definitely had a bit of a transformation there, and I'm glad he saw his vision out to the end. But I don't think he'd ever imagined himself where he is today.
Oh yeah, because the story continues. So I'm gonna do these next two just because this one is very short,
Of course.
and then the next one is the last one before we get to modern times. So Chaos. In 2010, Jack, along with the other past icons, have become one of the 5 minions of Fear himself. His desire to wreak havoc earned him the title of Chaos. So again, this is something we're going to talk about a little bit later. I'm not going to discuss it too much. So yeah, moving on. The Return. On Halloween of 2014, the last day of Halloween Horror Nights 24, a package was sent out by Universal to various media outfits, which contained a blood-spotted letter closed with a wax seal marked with an S. Inside the letter was a small flash drive marked with a white thumbprint and sealed over a strand of orange hair. On the flash drive was a short clip thanking fans for attending that year's event, while showing various terrifying moments from the houses and scare zones from that year. Near the end of the clip, the screen begins to flash with images of Jack laughing, while a broken down music box plays "Pop Goes the Weasel" in the background. In May of 2015, the official Horror Nights Twitter account released a tweet simply saying, May 19th, ... winky face. On May 19th, 2015, a video was released by Universal on YouTube showing a darkened corridor with a dark figure walking toward the camera. As the figure gets closer, an eerie music box tune begins to play "Pop Goes the Weasel," and Jack enters into the light, looking much older and wearing a new Ringmaster's outfit. Oh, so Jack is back, ladies and gentlemen. He is ready to play here. After a few short moments of a black screen, Jack pops up in front of the camera and snarls, "Did you miss me?" before smiling at the viewer and showing the official logo for the 25th year, revealing that Jack is coming back. Seemingly drunk with power after his transformation into a herald, Jack decided he wanted his spotlight back from his former master, Fear, and successfully created a sort of cult around himself, which he called Jack's Maniacs. With his ego in full swing, he committed himself to proving he was better than fear, believing himself to be Horror Nights incarnate, and decided to prove that to everyone by expanding and improving on his Carnival of Carnage, making it more terrifying than ever. After the conclusion of the event, it was revealed Jack and Chance were detained by authorities, with Jack sealed away back into his box and Chance being committed to Shady Brook Asylum. I don't know why, but that story itself gave me chills reading it. Because there was just something about that one that has such a blockbuster kind of feel to it. Yeah. And I really liked that. And one of the one of the other podcasts that I listen to, the Unofficial Universal Orlando podcast, you have to check them out if you get a chance. They cover all things Universal Studios. Their hosts went, this was the year that they went, Horror Nights 25. I want to say it might have been their first year going, but I don't want to quote that because I don't know for sure. But they went this year, and this was the year that they had, like, this was the year of their favorite haunted house, and I think it was called Jack Presents 25 Years of Mayhem or something. Like, it was an intense. Let me see if I can look it up because I want to make sure I want to quote this.
All right. Well, talking about the 30th anniversary here, apparently all three of Jack's previous incarnations will return to celebrate as well. So we're going to get all kinds of Jack.
And that's what I think we're all looking forward to. Like you said, we've already received official confirmation. And yes, it was Jack Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem. Apparently that was just an amazing house. Universal has already come out, and they have announced that Jack would be returning. You know, we talked about that the other day on an episode, and I told you exactly how they did it with the whole little... in fact, in the video version of it, I included the video just without the audio, so we didn't get flagged for anything. Yeah. So real quick, before we jump into all of Jack's appearances at, you know, just digging a little bit deeper into it, because it kind of gives us specifics, which we've talked about most of them. But, you know, we're just going to go back and kind of gloss over it all. Let's tell them about the Singapore storyline for Jack.
All right. So I'll go and dive into the Singapore storyline here. So during Halloween Horror Nights 4, which I guess is the Singapore Halloween Horror Nights 4, I guess the two timelines differ. He was one of the many characters in Jonah Goodwill's Democracy, and at Halloween Horror Nights 6 as well, that took place in Singapore, he was a part of Lady Death's festival, where he once again brought his circus. And it looks like if we go down here a little bit, it's going to talk about his circus when he was a ringleader.
Okay. So I think it might be where we might have to do a separate episode sometime on some of the Singapore storylines and stuff. That might be interesting to dive in, because, you know, nobody ever talks about HHN Singapore, so that might be a neat thing we can do.
Yeah, Singapore is pretty much a world away from Orlando, so yeah, there's probably, it probably follows the same somewhat set line, but yeah, there's definitely going to be some differences in characters and everything comparing Singapore to Orlando.
Oh yeah. So let's jump into his appearances, not experiences. His first appearance was at Halloween Horror Nights 10 as the icon and overall presence in the park and haunted houses, as well as having his own show, Jacked Up. He returned several times after this event. So for Halloween Horror Nights 11, you know, we already talked about that. He replaced Eddie, who was deemed too gory for that event. Then Halloween Horror Nights 14, he appeared alongside the Caretaker, the director, and Eddie. So Eddie did eventually get to show up at Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, thank God for him.
So we'll have to talk about him at some point. We'll have to, because he's not on this list, because I didn't deem him as one of the major icons, but we'll have to discuss him at some point. They were there, and they were part of a house called Horror Nights Nightmares, and they also he appeared as the MC of Rat Run during Halloween Horror Nights Tales of Terror. He was once again an icon during Halloween Horror Nights Sweet 16, along with the three returning icons to rule over the event. So that's the director, the Caretaker, the Usher. No, the Usher's not here yet. The Caretaker, the director, and the Storyteller. and he appeared in his own house, Psychoscarapy Maximum Madness. So I imagine that haunted house probably had him back in the straitjacket.
Yeah, judging by the name.
So his backstory was added to for the 17th year. In Halloween Horror Nights Carnival of Carnage, he became the ringmaster. Like you told us, he killed off his old Oddfellow friend. And then Jack was seen again on the last weekend, Halloween Horror Nights, ripped from the silver screen in the Scare Zone Shadows from the Past. So he kind of made an appearance in one of the Scare Zones that year. And then he appeared with the other icons in the Fear Revealed Scare Zone for Halloween Horror Nights 20, which, again, we'll talk about it later. In 2014, Jack appeared in Singapore as the owner of his house, Jack's 3 Dementia, plus a new show, Jack's Nightmare Circus, with Chance once again as his partner. So Jack actually got his own full-on house at Singapore
Wow.
year. And then in 2015, he returned to the event again with his own house. Jack Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem. And then he was also in a scare zone called Icons HHN and the show The Carnage Returns. And then, of course, this year we are talking about Jack once again returning as an icon during Halloween Horror Nights 30 in an all-new haunted house, as well as in various places in the streets. So, Aidan, why don't you read to us about the Carnival of Carnage?
All right, so let's see here. For the Carnival of Carnage, thanks to a deal with New Line Cinema, Universal Studios was able to use classic slashers for Halloween Horror Nights Carnival of Carnage. Now, this is when I was looking over it. I was getting pretty excited because I think for HHN 30, along with the new Halloween movies, I really think Michael Myers would be this, especially with his new like brutal appearance in Halloween Kills. It would be perfect because it's going to come out in October along the same timeline as HHN. That would just be perfect to include Michael Myers in this lineup. But thanks to Jack's pride and joy, the Clown Prince of Pain spared no expense to bring his murderous vision to life. As the main attractions, Jack enlisted 3 of the most famous slashers in movie history, as well as a collection of freaks, mutants, and loonies who shared his twisted dream. Now, the attractions include the main ringers, a collection of maniacal madmen never seen before alive in still living audience. So at the top of the lineup here, we have arguably my number 1 slasher here, Freddy the Springwood Slasher Krueger. Now, I really love Freddy just for like I like his glove with the claws. I like his appearance. Like his makeup was well done, especially for like the movies and whatnot. And even his quick little one-liners where he calls everyone a bitch. I really like that about him. But the sensational slasher and star of the A Nightmare on Elm Street series, a sadistic Sandman with the wit to match his new Harlequin boss, this burnt-alive soul uses his finger knife glove to kill his victims. Now, I would love to have his glove. I would love to have that one day. That'd be such a cool thing to own. But he kills his victims through their dreams, which is a really nice twist on how to take out people because they never know if they're actually awake or if they're asleep.
Yeah.
And he also promotes a new cure for insomnia. Sleep well, which is so effective you may never wake up again, which, yeah, he's a very effective snake oil salesman, if I had to say so. And coming in at second place here on the lineup, we have Thomas Brown Hewitt, also known as Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, he's not a man of few words, so I wonder how Jack convinced him to come out of Texas and, help over to Orlando. But let's see. The Chainsaw Wizard, which is also what he's known as apparently, especially here at the Ringleader, he has an eye for good cuts of meat, of course, especially if it walks and talks. And born with a skin deformity, this good, or is that bad, old boy from Texas likes to make masks from the faces of his victims, which he brings a new expression to a facelift, definitely. But he and his demented family, so the family's there too, also have their own taste in home decorating. Their furniture is made from human body parts. Nice.
Oh, okay.
The star of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre also helped organize the Chainsaw Drill Team. Nice. I didn't realize that there was a drill team that just revolved around using chainsaws. That'll be interesting to see. With the sheriff of his hometown of Blair, Sheriff Hoyt. Good old Sheriff Hoyt. And coming up next, we have another good old classic slasher that most people are usually adorned with. We have Jason Voorhees,
Oh.
with the masked master of the machete. Bunch of M's there again as well. He hails from Crystal Lake in Blairstown, New Jersey, and with almost as many sequels as kills, how true that is. Deformed hockey mask wearing killer from the Friday the 13th series has an impressive rap sheet. Tormented as a child, this indestructible man, or thing nowadays, very short a few words, can more than take a licking and keep on ticking, as they say. Mostly so that he can stop ticking in others violently. Okay. Go ahead and head on down to the other stars here and take that over. I'm not too familiar with the other stars at the bottom here.
It's okay, because neither am I, but sure, I'll take it over. So the other stars of this Carnival of Carnage are Mary Shaw and her 101 Dolls, a master ventriloquist from the small town of Ravensfair, New York. She entertained patrons with her 101 children, her dummies, until she was murdered by a vengeful mob as revenge for her supposed role in the disappearance of a rich boy who had heckled her during a performance. But death and a missing tongue couldn't keep this star down. Just make sure, refrain from screaming in her presence. She's looking for a replacement tongue.
Wow.
Okay, cool.
Then we have The Thing. And the only thing I can think of with The Thing is, I want to say there was a movie about him. I cannot remember.
Yeah,
Sure.
there was a long time ago. It was a part of like the classic horror movies like Dawn of
Yeah.
the Dead and all that. You had The Thing.
Yeah, well, it was one of those black and white ones, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm pretty was.
So, The Thing, what is it? A demon from hell? A government experiment gone wrong? Or maybe something a little more out of this world? Found in the ruins of an outpost in the frigid reaches of Antarctica, The Thing has no definite shape. Watch as it changes forms from human faces to dog heads to spider legs to tentacles. This creature can even perfectly mimic man and beast alike. But don't worry, its container is probably too strong for it to escape anyway.
All right.
So those are those are our lovely members of the Carnival of Carnage, or as they called it, the main ringers. One of the big speculations is with this year being the 30th anniversary and the icons and such coming back. And like I said, the icons is merely but speculation at this point. The only one we know for sure is Jack, but a lot of people are speculating all of them coming back. And with that, a lot of these sideshow attractions, as Jack calls them, returning as well. So that would be very, very awesome to have that happen. So we're just going to give you a quick list of the appearances at the various events, and then we're going to take a quick break. So at Halloween Horror Nights Orlando, Jack appeared in Jacked Up, The Fear House, Halloween Horror Nights 11, Horror Nights Nightmares, Psychoscarapy Maximum Madness, Horror Comes Home, The Arrival, Sweet 16 The Director's Cut, Jack's Carnival of Carnage, Jack's Funhouse and Clownavision, Horror Nights The Hallowed Past, Fear Revealed, The Cabin in the Woods, Jack Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem, The Carnage Returns, HHN Media 25, The Halloween Horror Nights Tribute Store, and now confirmed Halloween Horror Nights 30. If any of you listening have any experience with any of these or want to come on and talk to us or send us a message about it, you can send us a voice message or anything. Let us know which event or attraction you got to experience with Jack and tell us a little bit about it. We'd love to hear about it. His one appearance at HHN Hollywood was Terror Tram, Horror Comes Home, and that was 2007. That was the year 2007. My only assumption on that was he was what do you call it? He was up on the screen because they would ride a terror tram and his face would probably appear on the screen and talk to you. And then finally, appearances at HHN Singapore. We had Jack's 3 Dementia, which I feel like that would be really cool. I kind of would like to go to that. Jack's Nightmare Circus, and then Jack's Recurring Nightmare Circus. So those are all the Universal events that Jack appeared at. Like I said, if you got to experience any of these, feel free to send us a message. We'd love to hear about it. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Jack, and just tell us what your experience with Jack was. All right, we're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors, but we will be right back. Hey there, Terror Talk fans. Are you looking for a new way to let your voice be heard? If so, check out our friends at Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for creating your very own podcast. They offer editing tools to create your podcast, which include your audio, listener audio, unique transitions, and custom advertisements. In addition, they'll also help you distribute your podcast to other listener sources, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many others. With this unique app, you also have the chance to get paid for your podcast by simply placing ads for various sponsors in your videos. Best part of it all? It is 100% free. Anchor does all the work for you and makes podcasting as simple as turning on a light. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM. Whether you're new to podcasting, doing it as a hobby, or hosting a professional show, Anchor is the place for you. And we are back here on the Terror Talks. I'm here with my friend Aidan.
Hey guys.
And we are talking about the Halloween Horror Nights icons. Like we said earlier, with the announcement of Jack the Clown returning, we thought this would be a very fitting episode to take you through the history of all the icons of the event, or all the major icons, the original icons. So, before the break, you heard about Jack the Clown. Now we're going to talk about the Caretaker. So, Dr. Albert Kane, better known as the Caretaker, was the second original icon developed and first used for Halloween Horror Nights Islands of Fear in 2002. Fear gave him control of the 12th annual Horror Nights. His signature weapon is a pair of shears. That's an interesting choice for a weapon.
Yeah, it'd be kind of close to Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, I guess it's probably a play on that. I find it awesome that he was first used during Islands of Fear. That was like one of the only years that they did the Halloween Horror Nights over at Islands of Adventure instead of Universal Studios. So, typically every year it's been Universal Studios they did it at, but that year they went over to Islands of Adventure, and I wish I could have experienced that unique year. But unfortunately, I was but 2 years old at the time, so...
Yeah, that wouldn't be a very memorable. That would be pretty traumatic.
Yeah, be like, Mom, why is this man with scissors trying to kill me? No, it's just your uncle. Don't worry. So, his appearance is the Caretaker appeared as a tall and withered old mortician with a sunken skull-like face and dressed in a tattered suit with matching top hat, often seen with his signature weapon, a large clamp or claw that was a cross between a hedge clipper and a surgical clamp. All
right.
That's very interesting. So he's almost kind of ghost-like, almost. Like he's like a walking corpse, in a way.
Yeah, it seems pretty ironic that he's a mortician, and now he's kind of like undead.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I'm going to read his personality, and then I'm going to have you take over for the backstory, Chief.
All right.
So, while Dr. Albert Kane may have once been passionate about saving lives, by the time he began his experiments, that statement could not be further from the truth. His diaries show that he was a doctor who had gone mad with the power he had over first the dead, then his living parents. Patients, not parents, patients. I was like, geez, this guy's dark. In his vanity, he fancied himself as a pioneer in his self-styled field of research, and in spite of the horrors in the back rooms, took a measure of pride in keeping up the appearance of a professional funeral director.
Good for him.
So he's a ghost killer who basically is keeping up with the Joneses, if you will, by pretending to still be a funeral director.
Of course, I mean, he still wants to look legit and bring in business, so he always has someone to cadaver.
I guess that makes sense.
But let's see here. He's got a bit of a backstory, so we'll go and dive right into the very beginning here. This world has been connected and tied to the darkness. Now, once a well-respected surgeon, Dr. Albert Kane became the caretaker of Shady Oaks Cemetery in Willamette Valley. Oh, Shady Oaks. That seems to be like a running theme here.
Yeah.
Kane later converted the Victorian-style mansion he and his family lived into a mortuary and funeral parlor. All right, that's interesting. But for years during his career as a surgeon, Dr. Kane was intensely interested in the inner workings of the body. All right, so he was he liked anatomy pretty much. Now, what happened to the patients he couldn't save, and what happens to a person when they die. Kane and his family eventually used the deceased of the town as guinea pigs, so it was a family activity. Okay. He used them as guinea pigs in unnatural and bizarre experiments. His demented extended family, made up of both blood relatives and deranged assistants, dug up the bodies of both the recently and not so recently dead and used them for either Kane's experiments, their elaborate parties, or as house decorations. Now, there are quotations around the word parties, so I wonder what they would deem to be a party. I'm very much interested in knowing what's going on at that house. Now, Kane performed these experiments in an attempt to discover the nature of the soul. Now, you can't really physically see the soul, so I wonder how he's trying to capture the essence of a soul. Now, for fresh specimens, Kane would go into the nearby town to find homeless people. Of course, because homeless people were always willing patrons. And in what seemed like a charitable offer, and to his mansion/funeral home until they got back on their feet. Yep. Remember, people, if you invite homeless people over to your house, they're probably going to think you're going to kill them. Now, instead of helping, though, he would perform horrifying surgeries on them. Wow. Carving them open on the operating table while they were restrained and often fully conscious and without anesthetic. Some surgeon you are. Just anesthetize them, please. Kane occupied his time performing acts of the most base cruelty, chemical injections, brutal amputations, and live dissections. This sounds like a Civil War hospital. Castrations without anesthesia. Okay, interesting. Electroshock and even organ removal. This man just buy the board game Operation. You'll enjoy that a lot more, I guarantee you. Kane kept notes and audio recordings, but as time went on and his madness increased, these became rambling discussions, often delving into the philosophical. A few of Kane would sometimes thieve body parts during the surgery when he wasn't looking to use his dinner ingredients.
Oh, God.
All right. Even going so far as to use corpses as playthings in elaborate funeral parlor parties. Elaborate parties. Okay, that's not the word I would use, but okay. He also performed experiments in fear and wished to see how much the human mind could endure before succumbing to madness and death. He should use himself as a test subject because he succumbed to madness a long time ago, which resulted in at least one person being buried alive. Okay. People can survive that, I'm pretty sure. The terrible sight was seen by two teenagers who decided to take a walk through the cemetery telling ghost stories. It's always a good idea. Walking past the gravestones of various monuments, they heard music carried on the wind. Following the sound, they came across the Shady Oak Cemetery where they witnessed the Kane family dancing with the rotted remains of decaying corpses. Sounds a lot like Seth from Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, it does actually. I didn't even think about that. So I have to point this out because this is very interesting. There was we talked about this last time. There was a haunted house I told you guys about called Graveyard Games that they did for HHN 29. And in the Graveyard Games, if I recall correctly, the story was there were two teenagers playing amongst the headstones. So I wonder if Graveyard Games is kind of a tie-in to this story of the Kane family. I would be very interested to go back and kind of look into that and find out.
It most definitely has to be.
I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it seems very, very, very likely.
Oh yeah, just in the cemetery. I mean, that's pretty much like that fits the description right there. I mean, did they actually feature the Kane family though in that attraction, or did they kind of like allude to it in a manner?
I'm not sure. I would have to ask the people who've been before and kind of get some listeners. If you were there, if you saw anything, let us know.
Yeah, go and put that in the comments on what was actually there, because I'm pretty sure that's a tie into the Kane family, and I might be right on that. But I mean, I've also never been, so hopefully we can get some insight on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, skeletons in the closet. I made the news today. Dr. Albert Kane is quoted saying that was taken from his audio recordings from the Kane funeral home. Word of the grisly goings-on quickly spread, and the police launched a massive investigation. Well, I guess you'd have to. That many people go missing.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Chief Brockett giving the order to place all individuals at the crime scene under house arrest. Why not just...
Yeah, everything goes on at that house, so they're not changing anything.
Yeah, I was about to say, you just became the next experiment. Oh God! Instead of resist, I read the next thing.
Yeah, he cooperated. He's cooperating. Of course, he's happy about it. The entire laboratory's in the house. It doesn't matter to him.
Oh my God! Instead of resisting, Kane gladly cooperated with the sickened authorities and even seemed eager to show the results of his research. Oh my God! Universal, man, come on. Oh, wow. Reports of what was found inside during the investigation made headlines that shocked and mortified the nation. The local townspeople, mostly comprised of the relatives of the deceased, used in the caretaker's experiments, took matters into their own hands, forming a mob and setting fire to the Victorian mansion and the whole area with the Kane family still trapped inside. Okay, so they're taking a page out of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, rightfully so. I like how the Kane family was still trapped inside. Even with the building on fire, they still maintained their house arrest order and went down with the building.
No, they just didn't want to die without their stuff. They wanted to be around their experiments.
Probably very true. He didn't want to lose all of his research and whatnot, so he'd rather die with his research. That's very true.
So,
yeah, do you want to go and take over on the Scream House here, or do you want to segue into that?
I'll take this one. Scream House. Investigating the remains, investigators were unable to find the body of Kane or his demented family, save for the supposed body of Kane's young daughter, Cindy. However, they did find an elaborate network of tunnels running for miles under the graveyard that started in the cellar, which allowed the vandals to retrieve bodies from below. Among the ghoulish evidence was a kitchen filled with body parts, a large kettle on the stove that contained boiled body parts, a corridor filled with intestines, an eyeball on the stove, boiling brains, a collection of skulls, and audio recordings, some of which were Dr. Kane's notes, others from his live surgeries, and some that appeared to be an audio diary of sorts. Before the torching of the site, 4 victims were positively identified, and over 2,000 graves were estimated to have been tampered with.
2,000 graves, wow. And the town just started catching on to that. That's... let's see. A past that won't die. So 1 year later, the Shady Oak Cemetery had been off limits for all comers until the charred ruins of the Kane Funeral Home were set to be demolished. And until the discovery of 3 unidentified decomposing bodies on the premises, not long after, people who were last reported in the vicinity of the site began to go missing. All right, looks like they're coming back. Several research teams were sent into the reopened cemetery to investigate reports of strange noises emanating from the ruin in the Shady Oak Cemetery, which may be connected to the terrible secrets of its horrifying past. With 3 teams gone missing. Wow.
Why are you still sending teams at that point?
Yeah, the question remains, could Albert Kane and his family have escaped that fire? Well, yeah, they had tunnels, and 3 teams just went missing at the cemetery. They're definitely still out there.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Door to Darkness. While it is not confirmed he is undead or has been alive all along, he still in a sense, lived on. Probably his legacy, if anything, if he actually did die later on. With the help of his real god, he took control of various creatures such as the Treeks and Foons, the Nightmare and Carnage, and together they plunged the islands of adventure into a world infected with Albert's darkness. He still resides in his abandoned mortuary, tampering with the brains of his victims to test their capacity for fear. Right.
Wow.
Took an odd turn.
Universal got a little dark with this one, didn't they? Like, more so than Jack.
Yeah.
All right, read this last one for us.
All right, our final chapter here, I Am Death. When fear was summoned, he chose the Caretaker as his minions. Death. The Caretaker now has strange markings on his neck, as with the other icons, linking him to fear. Later, Bloody Mary and Jack broke him out of the Lantern to participate in the 25th year. Lantern, okay. Interesting.
So that Lantern, we will talk about that when we talk about this fear person much, much later. So, appearances at HHN. First off, in the marketing. He appeared in a couple of commercials by Dean Carr in 2002, two of which were in Shady Oaks and one in Sting Alley. The first two had him playing with dead bodies, and the third had him stalking a couple in New York. He had plenty of presence in print, such as posters and brochures. There was an interview by the Orlando Sentinel newspaper where he chatted about fears. He introduced the Art of the Scare documentary, which also revealed his actor's name to be Bryce Ward. Port Aventura had him as the icon for the Halloween event in 2003 and reused his commercial dubbed in Spanish. According to James Keaton, he and three other characters, one of which was Dr. Fear, appeared in New York City for a publicity stunt in a news for Halloween Horror Nights 14. He was shown among the other icons for Halloween Horror Nights Sweet 16. He was the one who cut the cake in the commercial and had a little jump scare in the hotel commercial that year. While he himself wasn't a part of 2006 in Hollywood, his mortuary was present in the director's ad as well as a shot of the shears. Okay. Interesting. Now tell us about him being at the event.
Let's see. At the actual event, he first appeared on the screen for the Port of Evil Scare Zone in 2002. So it looks like he has a lot of media presence, but not so much a physical presence, which is weird. He would speak of the creatures that lurked in the event and was seen in the flesh as a stilt walker / barker in the town square of Tortured Souls. Okay, so here he's actually physically there, thankfully. He also had his own icon house that year titled Scream House. 2003 is where Port Aventura has him as the icon for their Halloween event that year, appearing as a scare actor that year, according to Dr. Jimmy and Mademoiselle Princess. He still was used for other Halloween events in that park even after the Universal license was revoked. Wow. Though in some years he had an axe instead of the shears, 2004 had him in the Horror Nights Nightmares Haunted House. 2006 featured him in The Arrival and Sweet 16. The director's cut shows and featured Scream House, The Resurrection, where he tried to resurrect Cindy. 2009 featured him in the unofficial Shadows of the Past Scare Zone. In 2010, he appeared in the Main Gate video, a slightly edited version of the Warehouse Experience vid from the website, and had him in front of his hearse in Fear Revealed. He also appeared in the Horror Nights, the Howard Pass Haunted House that year. In 2013, he made a cameo appearance as a statue in the Cabin in the Woods Haunted House. Finally, in 2015, he returned to celebrate the 25th Halloween Horror Nights year by appearing in both the Jack Presents 25 Years of Monsters Mayhem Haunted House and the Icons HHN Scare Zone.
Okay, so he had a lot of presence, actually.
Yeah, a lot of it is kind of like more or less in the background, but even his physical appearance is kind of limited, judging by how he was out for a little bit, and then the area that he was at, the Universal license got revoked, and then they still kept him around, kind of, and then he came back as a statue for a little bit.
Yeah. So, his appearances were merely only at Halloween Horror Nights Orlando, and just to give another quick rundown of them, they were in the Scream House in 2002, Port of Evil 2002, Town Square of Tortured Souls 2002, Scream House Revisited 2003, Horror Nights Nightmares 2004, Scream House The Resurrection 2006, The Arrival 2006, Horror Comes Home 2006, Shadows from the Past 2009, Fear Revealed 2010, Horror Nights The Hallowed Past 2010, The Cabin in the Woods 2013, where he was a statue, Jack Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem 2015, and the Icons HHN Scare Zone 2015. So those are all the places that the Caretaker.
It seems like he was used a lot in the very beginning. How he has like a lot of 2002, 2006 appearances from that time frame. He had a lot of appearances in the span of 4 years, and then like after 2010, they just kind of stopped using like all their classic characters, and now they're finally coming back.
Yeah, which you see that sometimes. Sometimes they take a break, or sometimes they realize that a character maybe doesn't get the same reaction as one, and obviously, Jack is a wonderful example of a character who, got all this amazing recognition and the crowd wanted him back again. So you see it's different for all of them. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. We are going to be talking about the rest of our icons, the director, the storyteller, the Usher, and our special extra one, Fear, on our next episode of the Terror Talks podcast, or one of our future episodes. We'll be talking on them. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you want to see, what you want to hear. Let us know if we missed something. Feel free to send us audio messages, voice messages, video messages. We will happily feature you on the show. We want to hear from you. If you follow us on any of our social medias, we have actually sent out a call for help. Yes, we have a call for help to those of you who have attended the Halloween Horror Nights event in the past. If you've been, we want to get your listener tips and tricks on how to have a successful Halloween Horror Nights. We're going to do an episode featuring you. That's right, just you, our guests, our listeners. We just want to hear, what your tips are to a successful Halloween Horror Nights. It can be whatever you want to say regarding it. What can you do to make Halloween Horror Nights the best it can be for you and your family? My guest today has been Aidan.
Hey there, fellas.
Thank you so much for coming on with us and discussing these with us. He will be back when we discuss the rest of the icons, and he'll be back on several other episodes, I'm sure. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Go check out our Patreon. If you go to our Patreon, you can become a member for just $1 a day, or $1 a month, actually. You can pay $1, $5, or $10 for the VIP. With $10, you get special merchandise from us, and with the $5 package, you get bonus episodes, bonus content, and early release to episodes. And then with the $1 package, you get early releases to our episodes before they are on all of our other things. If you don't want to pay for that, but you still want to support us, be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as several other listener sites where you can find us. We're on all of them, all of which are linked in the description. Go check out our friends over at Tales from the Crypt, where they're diving into all things paranormal and spooky. Go check out our friends at the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast and their sister podcast, the Rush of Fear podcast, where they are talking about all things Universal Studios and Universal related. And then Rush of Fear is talking about all things Halloween Horror Nights related. If you liked this episode, like I said, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you want to hear. If there's something you want to contact us directly, send us an email to theterrortalks@gmail.com. We check it all the time. We're always looking and listening for you guys. But thank you guys so much. My guest today has been Aidan. Thank you for coming on today, and we will see you guys next time on The Terror Talks. Have a great day, guys.